the 5 habits to avoid if you want to get better sleep. Today's episode is part 2 of 3 on sleep. Last week in part 1, I discussed sleep science. Today in part 2, I'll go over the 5 bad habits to avoid. And next week in part 3, I'll discuss 6 strategies to fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. All right, you guys, part 2 on our 3-part series on sleep. Last week, I talked all about sleep science, about what makes us fall asleep, the architecture of sleep, and the health benefits of sleep. And now we're going to talk all about the things that we can avoid to help us get better sleep as well. Because like I know, we all know the feeling of wanting to get a really good night's sleep. And then we get in bed at a reasonable hour and we're excited, but then we're not able to fall asleep. And we're tossing and turning for maybe 30 minutes or so, but we hope we're able to fall asleep soon. And then 1 hour hits and we start to get stressed out about the fact that we're going to be tired tomorrow. And then that stress keeps us up even longer. And it's just a vicious cycle of being stressed about not getting enough sleep and then staying up because of the stress and then not actually getting enough sleep, etc. Because when you're stressed, your mind is racing and you might not be able to get comfortable, and just falling asleep is no fun whatsoever. And struggling to stay asleep is equally as frustrating. But today I'm going to cover some tools that will help you fall asleep with ease and stay asleep so that you can wake up feeling rejuvenated and ready to crush your day. Again, this is part 2 of 3 on sleep. Really excited to get in today, the habits to avoid, and then next week about specific strategies to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. Again, as a side note, I personally am not a sleep expert. I'm not a sleep scientist. But what I'm sharing in this 3-part series is what I've learned through sleep scientist Dr. Matthew Walker. He's a renowned sleep expert and author of the book, Why We Sleep, The New Science of Sleep and Dreams. I've read the book, I've listened to him on numerous podcasts, and I've taken an abundance of detailed notes. So today I'm going to provide you with specific behavioral changes in order to get better sleep. But before I even do that, I want to talk about what is sleep efficiency. Sleep quality is often described through a ratio that's called sleep efficiency. And sleep efficiency is simply the amount of time you're asleep divided by the amount of time that you're in bed. So it's time asleep over time in bed. Dr. Matthew Walker discusses that ideally our sleep efficiency is 90% or above on average. He says that if you're above, if you're in between 80 to 90%, then he's not too concerned about your sleep quality. But if you're consistently under 80%, that you would really benefit from learning how to get that number up. And again, it's time asleep over time in bed. So if you're asleep for 6 hours, but you're in bed for 8 hours, meaning that you're maybe struggling to fall asleep for an hour and then you wake up and you're in bed for an hour, or you have like time in the middle of the night where you're waking up and not able to fall asleep. So if you're 6 hours asleep over 8 hours in bed, that's 75%. That would be underneath the mark that you would want to get to and severely underneath the ideal mark. So today's episode is to help you increase sleep quantity by getting you 7+ hours a night, and then improving your sleep quality and efficiency by getting you to 90% or greater. So let's go ahead and dive into 5 bad habits that ruin sleep. Number 1 is caffeine. And look, that one's no secret. You've probably heard that one before. And everyone's body's ability to process caffeine is different. Some people can drink a cup of coffee and fall asleep an hour later, while someone else might have a cup of coffee at 11 a.m., but it keeps them up all night. If you drink caffeine, it's really just important to know how it does or does not impact you. Now, that said, if you're the type of person, which is kind of like me, where you can have a cup of coffee and then you could fall asleep shortly after, it might not be impacting your ability to fall asleep, but there are studies that show it can disrupt your sleep quality by decreasing the amount of deep sleep that you're able to get early on in the night. So as discussed in part 1 of this sleep series, how caffeine works with regards to sleep is caffeine latches on to adenosine receptors. And adenosine is a chemical that builds up in our body more and more throughout the day, creating what's called sleep pressure. And when we get towards the end of the day, sleep pressure is really great, causing us to be tired and want to fall asleep. But when we take caffeine blocks those adenosine receptors from adenosine, therefore not allowing us or not having that experience of sleep pressure, therefore not wanting to fall asleep. And so if we have caffeine too close to bedtime, we're blocking adenosine from their receptors, therefore having less sleep pressure, therefore struggling to fall asleep. So the big takeaway from this first habit is to ideally don't have caffeine within 8 to 12 hours of when you fall asleep, giving your body the ability to get rid of the caffeine before bedtime. Second habit to avoid or minimize is alcohol. And before I even dive into that, that is what I'm saying. It's not that you need to completely avoid all of these things or completely eliminate them 100% of the time. Obviously, that would be great, but I'm not somebody who's going to give you unrealistic goals and unrealistic expectations. Just the more that you can minimize these things, the better off you're going to be from a sleep quality standpoint. But let's dive into alcohol. Alcohol might help you fall asleep. That's true. But it's probably going to disrupt your sleep quality because alcohol activates a hormone that's called our GABA hormone. And that's a relaxing hormone. Again, allowing us to maybe fall asleep more easily. But once your body breaks down that GABA, it gets converted to glutamate, which is an excitatory hormone. And this can cause you to have frequent bouts of waking up in the middle of the night after drinking. And oftentimes we don't even remember these bouts of waking up. So if you say you drank alcohol, but you didn't remember waking up in the middle of the night, that doesn't mean you didn't wake up in the middle of the night. That just means you didn't commit it to memory, which can often happen. So alcohol, and the other thing is alcohol is one of the most powerful suppressors of REM sleep, therefore severely impacting the quality of our sleep. The takeaway from this one is, those of you guys know me, you know that I drink, and you know that I'm not telling you not to drink. I'm simply here to inform you that alcohol is not a tool to improve your sleep. If you've been using alcohol to help you wind down at night or help you fall asleep, know that you're doing more harm than good, and know that your sleep would benefit from weaning yourself off of that habit. We did caffeine, we did alcohol. Now we're going to talk about evening light. Our circadian rhythm operates based on light exposure, and in particular, light exposure through our optic nerve, or located in our eyes. Our circadian rhythm does a good job of resetting in the morning when we do get morning light, especially morning sunlight, but we throw off our circadian rhythm when taking in too much light in the evening. By too much light, I mean really screens and technology. We're confusing what we're doing when we're looking at our phone or watching TV late at night. We're kind of confusing our body's natural 24-hour sleep cycle, that circadian rhythm, making it think like, oh, it's not nighttime because you're getting light into your eyes, and that'll make it more difficult to fall asleep. Now, it's kind of a double-edged sword with this one, because as a standalone factor of sleep, using technology and light like that will negatively impact our sleep as a standalone factor. But I do know through experience and just talking to a lot of people that watching a TV show or watching a movie can help to calm your mind at night, maybe decreasing your stress levels, and therefore helping you fall asleep more easily at night. Now, that being said, I'm not saying technology or watching movies or watching Netflix is really the right tool to help you fall asleep, but I will say that if it's the only thing that's going to reduce your stress levels or keep your mind from racing, then it might be a good tool to use every now and then. However, I'd encourage you to learn other strategies to help manage and reduce your stress rather than mindless television or watching movies or scrolling through Instagram or TikTok. So again, the takeaway here is avoid a light by way of technology and screens, especially when lying in bed, to help keep your circadian rhythm on track. Don't have your phones on your bedside table, and don't fall asleep with the TV on. Fourth habit to avoid, eliminate, listen to the context here, is napping. Now, napping is great when it's done correctly. If you nap for too long or too close to your bedtime, though, it can negatively impact your ability to fall asleep. So napping works almost like caffeine in the sense that in the middle of the day, it will reduce your sleep pressure. It will actually get rid of some of that adenosine that has built up. Actually, it doesn't work in caffeine in that way. Caffeine doesn't get rid of adenosine. It might not cause an increase in sleep pressure, but you get the point. Napping will actually reduce adenosine, therefore reducing sleep pressure. And if the sleep pressure doesn't build up by the time it's actually time to go to bed, then you might struggle to actually fall asleep. So the takeaway here is that Dr. Matthew Walker talks about that maybe taking a 20 to maybe upwards of a 90-minute nap during the day can be helpful, but not if it hurts your ability to fall asleep at night. I personally, if I ever nap, I go in and out of stages and seasons of my life where I do nap in the afternoon or I don't nap. I'm currently not. I used to do it very frequently, but I would keep it to around 20 minutes. So don't take excessive naps too close to bedtime. And then fifth and finally, a habit to eliminate or avoid is stress and anxiety. Now, I'm not telling you just like on cue, on the snap of a fingers, to reduce your stress and eliminate your anxiety. I know that's not how it works. But I wanted to include stress and anxiety in this section as something that hurts our sleep, because it does. And then in the next part 3 of this series, I'm going to be discussing some specific tools to help you reduce and manage your stress and anxiety. But the main takeaway is that stress and anxiety are contributors to inability to get good sleep, and that you would really benefit from learning some tools and strategies to reduce them. Again, I'll talk some more about that in part 3 of this sleep series. But in conclusion, sleep is a very individual process. Some of us feel like we can fall asleep anywhere at any time at the drop of a hat. But some of us feel like it takes us forever to fall asleep at night. Whoever you are, you have more control over your quality of sleep than you think. While I'm sure some sleep ability is genetic, there are still plenty of things that you can avoid or minimize in order to get higher quality sleep. Things like minimizing afternoon caffeine intake, drinking less alcohol before bed, stop watching Netflix while you're in bed, don't take late afternoon naps, and then learn how to reduce your stress levels when winding down at night. Now, I know some of these things are easier said than done, and some of them will work immediately, and some of them are going to maybe take some time and take some work and take some effort, like reducing stress, but all are going to be well worth your time and your effort. If you have the ability to fall asleep faster and you stay asleep longer, your mental, physical, and emotional health will improve. Now, today I talked about what to avoid. In part 3 of this series, next episode, we're going to talk about 6 specific tools and strategies that will help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. And some of these strategies are going to be truly life-changing for you and your mental, physical, and emotional health. And like I said, if you struggle with sleep and you feel like it's holding you back from achieving your fitness goals, then join the next 10-week transformation starting April 22nd. We can make a weekly sleep goal that's going to allow you to go from lethargic to energetic, from stressed to peaceful, and it'll allow you to perform mentally and physically at your peak. You can join today by going to nickcarrier.com/10WT. You can join me in Nashville at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., or 10 a.m., or you can join me anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world in the virtual program. Again, just go to nickcarrier.com/10WT to learn more. I hope today helps you to get better sleep quantity, better sleep quality, 7+ hours, 90+% sleep efficiency, therefore making you feel better, making you perform better, getting you closer to your fitness goals, and ultimately closer and closer to your best you.